Tsachi, thank you so much for joining us today at the Executive Interview Series. You've joined us from Madrid. You're on a short trip to Malta, so thank you for taking the time to be here. But you're no stranger to Malta at all.
Yes, thank you, Trudy, for inviting me. I lived in Malta for 8 years before I moved to Madrid, so it's wonderful to come after a few months to Malta to see the old friends, the offices. It feels good.
It's lovely to have you here. Well, listen, we're going to be talking a little bit later on about the growth of Aspire Global, the incredible growth of Aspire Global, and also how that looked like through a pandemic period. But before we get there, you've had some very exciting things that have happened over the last couple of months, and I want to really get down to the nitty-gritty of that. So my first question will be, you're talking about BtoBet, which it was an acquisition last September, and enabled you guys then to take the Sportsbook and the platform via William Hill into the South Americas, into Colombia. And so I want to ask, because we're talking about Sportsbook here, what is the long-term, but also the short-term objectives with Sportsbook? Because Sportsbook, over this COVID pandemic, has been absolutely decimated because we cannot have sports. So how have you responded to that?
So first of all, it's new to us, all this session with the sport. We used to have sport before, but we didn't own it. So it was very interesting to finalize an acquisition in such a year where in the beginning there wasn't any sport because of the pandemic. So the decision, of course, to acquire BtoBet was a long-term plan and not something that can be decided just for the next few months. And yes, you know, there were some effects from the sport, we saw it, but the pandemic here, and we see how the sport events are getting used to be activate even without the audience. So sport is getting into there with a different approach, different angle, different kind of events. So I think that the world saw and was in shock for the first few months. But since then, sport is happening. So I think we got used to it, to a different routine.
Well, you say a different routine, but I'm fairly sure that we haven't gotten back to the volume of sports events that we had prior to the pandemic. And you're talking about this choice to move into Sportsbook. I mean, that is an extremely brave decision right now when sports have been hit. I mean, was it something that you guys thought about long and hard, or was it you saw an opportunity and just wanted to move into that area?
It's a good question because we didn't come from the sport. It wasn't our bread and butter. But when we thought about where we want to see ourselves in the future, we wanted to see ourselves as a gaming supplier that control more and more elements in the value chain. So sport is the biggest vertical in many countries. So for us, it was natural that if we want to be very influential in the gaming sector, so we need to own this sport vertical. So it's more of a very long plan that we have, long ambition. So even if now it's being affected because of the pandemic, it will not disturb us from looking a little bit further. It's important for a strategic decision.
Do you think that sports will recover? I think there's a lot of industries and a lot of areas that are going to be affected by the pandemic that we're in at the moment and will be influenced in a long-term way. And we will be changing our behaviors. But you think sports will come back to what they were last year, or I should say 2019, pre-pandemic, and they'll come back as strong and as exciting as they were?
Exciting maybe not, because you cannot see sport without enjoying the audience.
Yes.
But you know, some of the public companies already starting to release their reports for Q4. And what we can see is that the sport is having given a better results than prior to the pandemic. So this is something that shows that if a gambler, a bettor, want to enjoy the games that he's looking now in TV and not in real, he's doing it and he's betting. So the sport is coming became even stronger than before.
So you're seeing this sportsbook new entity for you, the sportsbook, as a safe bet, a
Yes.
long-term safe investment.
Yes.
I'm excited for you. I'm really excited for you. But also, this is not the only new venture for you, because of course you've also taken Paraplay.
It's a great point, because in 1 year, from a company that have only a platform, we acquired Paraplay and then BtoBet, and it's opened up so many opportunities. And just talking personally, it's not that taken for granted that 2 acquisitions can be done in a year, and to add so many employees from different companies and to join it into one group, and doing it in a pandemic where everybody is doing it remotely. So it's quite a challenge what we had in the last 12 months.
Well, I think with the pandemic, as you mentioned, it's incredibly brave. It's obviously, you have a vision and you know what you're doing, obviously, but it's still a brave decision to move into new markets. And this, of course, is where Paraplay is taking you, because you have the interim iGaming supplier's license issued to you for West Virginia.
Yes.
On the back of having acquired New Jersey.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about America, North America for a moment, because a lot of people, it's well understood that America is a great opportunity, but it's also a region, or regions, because of course each state is separate, that needs educating when it comes to iGaming, because an awful lot of what is existing there is land-based. So have you seen these challenges? What are the areas of challenge, and what are the areas of opportunity? Again, very brave in a pandemic.
So the US is so exciting, and we knew that it will be shifting Aspire Global from its core markets and business. This is why we didn't choose to join the US in the first wave. We are joining it now in the second wave, and we are doing it through Paraplay. And you said that it's an educational, you need to be educated to the market. It's so true. Just the early entry, how much due diligence each one of the management needs to do and the company needs to do just to enter one state. It takes months. Only the document that you need to fill about your parents, the bank accounts, everything, the due diligence process. It's amazing. It's like 60 pages from 5 different forms, 15 years back. It's really long process. So I think.
Why do you think this is? Why do you think that in the US it is so difficult? They're making it so difficult with so much information being required.
Maybe it's to make sure that the players, the companies, the suppliers, the operators that are operating in the US, especially with the special combination in the US regulation, you cannot operate online without a joint venture or a cooperation with a land base or a local company. So in order maybe to be able to safeguard those relationships and the regulation, the due diligence process is massive. We never saw anything close to it before. So it's also a threat for companies to come in, because some black companies that are operating illegally in some countries, they will not be able to pass the regulation in the States. So it's like a block for some companies and an opportunity, because the ones that succeed going over it, it's opening up the biggest market in the world. So it's really exciting.
Does it differ? You're talking about these very strict procedures to even get your initial foot in the door. Does it change from state to state? Does it differ very much? Because each state is state run, so it differs. Right? How difficult was it from New Jersey to West Virginia?
So we asked ourselves the same question after the first big due diligence and process with New Jersey, and then we said, okay, from now it's only going to be easier. But it's not. Every state has its own process and questions. Of course that there is the base of this first New Jersey, but it's something that you need to deal with. So it's making it a little bit easier, but still it's a work to be done, and state by state it's taking a long time.
What drew you to New Jersey and West Virginia? Why those states?
New Jersey is pretty much becoming mature, the biggest state already in gaming, from the gaming aspect. A lot of operators and suppliers are already there for some time right now. So when you see that the opportunity with many operators already active, so we are able to supply our products there, and then to go into the next states that just were released recently, the last year or so. So New Jersey is the biggest to start with.
And then West Virginia was a natural progression.
Yes.
And I assume that you're eyeing up more states to move into more areas, as you said, in the biggest market in the world.
Yes, we are in the process of Pennsylvania and also Michigan and some others. So a big portion of our time is to fill up those forms in order to apply for those licenses.
To have some poor person filling out a 60-page form each time. Have there been any other challenges heading into the US? Because the US itself has had a very difficult year with the pandemic, with elections and so on. Have there been any other challenges that would have caused this process to have stumbled at all? Or has it been just filling in the process, filling the forms and getting underway?
So there is the challenge that you all the time ask yourself, with who you want to cooperate in the US, because the access with the due diligence is long and heavy, and then you need to certify the products in the labs in the US, and the certification process is much longer than the certification process in Europe. So when you are doing it, you want to make sure that you are doing it for the right partner that will also be able to supply the return of the huge investment that you are going to put in the US. So those are the challenges that we see right now, where to put the efforts and for whom, in order to make sure that we will also gain from it in the future.
Well, listen, it sounds amazing, and I'm really excited, and I'm excited to see you take over the states. But you did say one thing just then that leads me very nicely on to what I wanted to ask you next, which was, you said, we are not going to remain in this situation forever. And there will be, you yourself said, there will be a return to land-based because people love being together. So for yourself, for Aspire Global, which has had massive growth, not just over the last 4 years, but definitely over the last year of this pandemic period, you've seen accelerated growth. So, and made some, as you've just described, some very brave decisions to go into new regions, new territories, new acquisitions. Was there ever a point where you think to yourself, hang on a second, we need to play it a little bit safe? Or are you all guns blazing, go out there and dominate the world?
It came to my mind that it's there is, you know, when you grow from 50, 70, 100 employees to be 450, and acquiring 2 companies, and the revenues jump 40% year over year, there is a pain in the growth. You see it, especially when the employees are not coming to the office, they are working from home. And when they are joining a company, so the training and the onboarding is in remotely. So we see the pain of this growth. Of course, we are trying to find out a lot of aspects, how to make it a little bit softer and to make it a little bit more connected. It's some challenges that we are feeling it, trying to solve it. I'm lucky to have great HR team in the group to make sure that it's in the right direction. But those are some of the challenges that we saw. And sometimes I said, okay, maybe it was too fast. And after 2 minutes, I think, let's go faster.
That's fantastic. Tsachi, you know, you're talking about growth, you're talking about onboarding in the pandemic, you've talked about how many people that you've brought on. What's the reality of that? And also, what is that going to look like post-pandemic? Because a lot of businesses are now talking, and even at EU level right now, are talking about revolutionizing our work environment. And there's a discussion at the moment of the 3-2-2 model, with 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, and then of course the weekend. So this is revolutionizing the way that we work. Is this something that, as you've had such rapid growth, is this something that you will see that will continue for the future as you move forward and you just keep going?
It will, and I must say that we try to tackle the way that we will be after pandemic, already after 2-3 months when the pandemic started, because we saw that the employees are a little bit curious and concerned how it will look like after, because right now they are at home, how it will look like after. They saw that they are able to deliver even if they are in remote. And what we decided to do already then is exactly what you said, was to combine it with X days in a week in the office, X days at home. And we tried even to take it to another level, not only on the same hours of the day, so they can also choose if to start at 9 o'clock or to start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Because we know that there are small kids, little kids in some families, and there are other things that they wanted to do in the morning. So we saw that we can combine it also with the working hours, not only the working days. So this is where we are right now.
This is revolutionary. I mean, it took us a pandemic to change the way that we work. And so many people are talking about the benefits of it. They actually have more time, they work harder. Are you finding this as well? Are you finding that your employees, even the new onboarded employees, work more efficiently from home? I mean, is this something, or is this just a myth?
I think it depends on the role and the profession. I must say that we see some areas where the efficiency is less than before, and they can cover it by maybe more hours in order to complete the mission. But the majority is okay, and I'm fine with that. It's better for me that the employees and the staff are happy and that they can take a shower with their little kids at 6 o'clock, when before they just came back after a long ride, waiting in the traffic and missing it. It's worth a million for me that they are happy, they can do it, and they are more committed. So even if the efficiency is a little bit less, it's okay.
What a great thing to say. What an absolutely inspiring thing to say. Listen, you've talked about these brave moves that you've made, these decisions that you've taken, and these ventures, these new ventures in this challenging time. What is the vision for Aspire Global? Because from talking to you, I'm assuming it's world domination.
Yes, it is. We know what we want to do. We have strict plans how to achieve that. And I believe that in the next 3 years, the gaming industry will see much more than from Aspire Global.
I'm extremely excited. I'm looking forward to seeing where the future takes you. Tsachi Maimon, I'm so glad that we could get together and talk. Thank you very much indeed. I'm wishing you all the very, very best for that world domination.
Thank you, Trudy. Thank you very much.